All right, hello my good friends, welcome back to the Cozy Representative. My dear old friends, how are we doing? It's good to be back with you. So today I wanted to do a little video about a band called Artist vs. Poet. So why don't we run away? This was a band who I definitely personally grew up with. Like in middle school, this was my freaking jam. Neon pop punk world, we're talking Warped Tour 08, 09, so we're talking the world of, All Time Low, Forever the Sickest Kids, The Main. This was a band, Artist vs. Poet, who were a band who weren't like a small band. Like if you were a fan of the Warped Tour world at the time, you definitely at the very least heard of this band, Artist vs. Poet, but they weren't one of the giant names at the time, like an All Time Low or Forever the Sickest Kids or whatever. They were more of like the opening act for All Time Low or Mayday Parade or what have you. But, just to be frank, there's no real crazy dramatic story to Artist vs. Poet. I just wanted to make this video because they were a band that I grew up with and loved, and were very much a part of the scene, and were, even though they weren't like super big or there wasn't some crazy story, deserves to be documented, and I want to put some shine on Artist vs. Poet.
Hey guys, we are Artist vs. Poet! 08 is over, officially. It was a great year for us, and you guys helped with it, so thank you so much. 09's coming, it's gonna be good. Okay, there's a little bit of that. 09's here, and we are gonna have a blast, a blast.
And before we get into the story, I do want to say, for anyone who doesn't know, last year, 2022, the former vocalist of Artist vs. Poet, Tarcy Thomason, actually did pass away, which is, so tragic, so heartbreaking. I was really sad when I heard that news. So this video is, dedicated to the memory of Tarcy, and, I did just want to say rest in peace to Tarcy, and my sincerest condolences to his family and his friends, and just wanted to say in memoriam of him that the band he was in, Artist vs. Poet, did mean a lot to people out there, and meant a lot to me growing up, and so rest in peace, Tarcy, and love you as a vocalist, love you as a dude, and yeah. So with that, time for the story of Artist vs. Poet. Let's get into it. Awesome band. If you don't know them, maybe this video can be your introduction to checking out some cool music you haven't heard. Anyways, let's get into it. So Artist vs. Poet formed in late 2007. They came out of Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas area, and like so many bands, they formed out of the ashes of previous local bands that various members had been a part of, and there's some interesting local bands in the mix here, actually. So the lead vocalist, Tarcy, as well as the drummer of Artist vs. Poet, Joe Westbrook, came from a band called Enter the Collector, who were kind of a heavier sort of band. They actually sound really cool. that band broke up, and late 2007, Tarcy posted a MySpace bulletin looking for another musician to start a acoustic project, actually.
To have these things, you must be alive. Something real, something solid.
And the first person to respond to that MySpace bulletin was a local scenester named Craig Calloway. So, fun fact about Craig Calloway, he used to be in a band called The Flip Side. Who were a Dallas, Texas band, existed from 2004 to 2006. The vocalist of that band, his name is Jonathan Cook. The drummer was Kyle Burns. Do these names ring a bell to you? The guitarist is Mark Stewart, and the bass player is Kent Garrison. All of those guys, after the Flip Side broke up in 2006, went on to form a band called Forever the Sickest Kids. Whoa. And Craig Calloway was the guitar player of that band. I do not know why Craig didn't go on to be in Forever the Sickest Kids, but he was obviously still a part of the local scene and hooked up with Tarcy via that MySpace bulletin. So anyways, once Tarcy and Craig Calloway hooked up, after, pretty instantly they decided they didn't want to just be an acoustic band, and they wanted to put a full band together. So Tarcy hit up Joe Westbrook, who played in Tarcy's old band Enter the Collector, and they found some other local dudes. A guy named Jason Dean joined on bass, and a guy named Joe Kirkland joined the band on rhythm guitar and backing vocals.
So it all started with a MySpace bulletin. What is the story?
Well, our bands broke up in the Dallas little area, and I got tired of sitting on my butt at home, so I just posted a bulletin. He responded, we started writing, and we're going to do it just us two for a while, and then we got the rest of the guys shortly thereafter.
Okay, awesome. So do you think online communities like MySpace give an edge on the music industry today?
Oh yeah. That's like the main reason why we're together. And if it wasn't for MySpace, if it wasn't for MySpace, then it wouldn't have happened.
I wonder if any bands answer no to that question.
No,
those bands are
MySpace has not helped me at all.
Yeah.
So do you think bands that are out now are there because of MySpace and they're promoting through that?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
A lot of bands don't even have websites anymore. They just have MySpace.
And with this lineup, they pretty much immediately went into the studio, and in May of 2008 released their first little kind of DIY, first debut EP, which was called Alive Once Again. So this EP, Alive Once Again, by Artist versus Poet, is, in my opinion, kind of one of those, real cool, just, lost classics of the MySpace era. Definitely worth a listen. I might include a link to it in the description, because someone uploaded it on YouTube. It's not on streaming services or anything, but really cool. So it's interesting how everyone in Craig Calloway's old band went on to form Forever the Sickest Kids, because this EP, kind of the brand, the style of neon pop punk, quote unquote, that it is, it's kind of sounds like a less goofy version of Forever the Sickest Kids almost. It has that same type of style that FTSK brought to the table, which is like a very well done, kind of intricate style of neon pop punk, which is very heartfelt but also very caffeinated and bouncy, you know what I mean? But for Artist versus Poet, I feel like the sound on this EP, you can kind of tell that certain members were part of heavier bands before this, because there's a certain level of intensity and epicness to the arrangement of the music, and just as well as straight up musical chops here displayed on this EP that you know, other neon bands from the time didn't necessarily have, like the Maine or the Somerset, you know, didn't necessarily have the same level of like intensity and chops and you know, almost kind of a darker edge on certain songs. And this EP does have its share of like auto-tune and techno like beats and shit, so real MySpacey, real cool. Again, kind of a lost classic of the MySpace era. Very much recommend it. So the band started playing shows in 2008 in support of the Alive Once Again EP. They were doing their thing on MySpace, etc. And as the story goes, they played a show, and at that show, Bob Becker, who's the owner of a record label called Fearless Records. I was a big Fearless Records fan growing up, like when I was in middle school and getting into all these neon bands. I kept Fueled by Ramen and Fearless Records were my two favorite labels. Those were labels that like I was fans of those labels the way that like you would be a fan of like bands, you know? I think that's how, I don't know if people are still like that with labels. I think they probably are. But back then there was definitely you know, there were labels that you would watch and you would trust the bands getting signed to these labels, and you know what I mean? You like trusted the label's judgment. And Fearless was a label that I just every band they signed for a period of time, it was like Every Avenue, and then the Maine they signed, and then the Morning Light, and all three of those bands were like my favorite bands. And then they signed Artist versus Poet in 2008. So that's how I became a fan.
So you guys are playing a show at the Knitting Factory, and next thing you know, you're signed with Fearless. You guys want to elaborate on the story?
We were actually, he wasn't out there to see us. He was out there to see another band, and he came and watched the band and caught our set, talked to us after the show, and brought us in 2 days later, and we signed a month later.
Awesome. So how have things been since that? What has changed?
Awesome. Yeah, we got a van. We're not touring in a suburban.
CD in stores?
Yeah, CD in stores. That's cool. Never has
Everyone go get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got signed to Fearless summer of 2008, and like I was saying, that was my introduction to the band because I started seeing ads in alternative press for the newest Fearless band, who were Artist versus Poet, and that leads us into the second EP by Artist versus Poet. Technically the second one, but kind of like the first one. The first label one, the one that most people heard first, which was the self-titled Artist versus Poet EP, which came out in November of 2008. This one was produced by Mike Green, who had worked with bands like Danger Radio, Paramore, and The Higher, came out on Fearless. And this EP is like, so this obviously was the first one that I heard by Artist versus Poet. Still to this day, my favorite release by the band. And, you know, in my opinion, this EP is like just as solid as a neon pop rock EP can get. It's just airtight quality front to back. It features 2 re-recorded songs from the Alive Once Again EP, Assurance Closure, as well as an Infallible Remedy, which those songs kind of had the more intricate, MySpacey kind of sound. And then there were 3 new songs, 2 of which, the opening track Runaway and track 3 Lisa Marie. These songs were kind of sounded more like singles, you know, more straight down the middle, anthemic choruses.
Don't blame yourself. Oh, what is real? Why don't we run away? The problems are things. Why can't we run away?
And the last song on this EP is an acoustic song called All In, which is like a really touching acoustic kind of ballad about, it's a song about the band, about how all the members are all in to making their dream a reality. It's really sweet. And yeah, this EP is just perfect to me. Like, yeah, just a really solid EP front to back, very meaningful to me personally. I grew up with this thing, listening to it. This sounded like a real band to me. And, you know, again, the musicianship they had, they were all really good. Like, they were great musicians, and Tarcy was just a killer vocalist, such a solid voice he had. And yeah, I don't know. Again, I really recommend this EP if you've never heard, if you're a fan of like pop punk, or, you know, it's kind of more of like a pop rock neon kind of thing. But again, another lost class. I don't know if this is even a lost classic. It's a classic in my book. But anyways, this EP comes out. You know, the band is getting like moderate scene success. Their name is starting to get out there. I wouldn't say they necessarily blew up in a way, but you know, it's their debut EP, and they're getting out there. They're cutting their teeth.
We got a new power converter, and we're gonna see if it works.
Okay.
Here we go.
Want me to turn on?
Here's the
That one's
true.
on. That one's on. This is the USB one.
True.
Oh, he's got a text
Want
message.
to turn on?
Wait.
I turned it on.
It's charging!
Artist vs. Poet. Check out the new record starting April. It'll be out late summer probably.
And Kirkland is weak.
Bastard.
Yeah, Artist vs. Poet, not known for muscle, but known for great rock and roll tunes.
Alright.
Thirsty.
What we doing? We can go shave our faces. We got a photo shoot today.
For?
The calendar, 2009. Fearless Records calendar. Now!
I'm gonna get you.
Now!
I'm gonna get you.
Now!
I'm gonna get you. Oh, I'm gonna get you good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are Artist vs. Poet.
So in late 2009, the band was gearing up for the release of their first full length, but before that, they put out, you know, what I'm pretty sure was kind of a little teaser EP before the album. It was called Damn Rough Night, and Damn Rough Night, the song, ended up being on their full length, which would come out in a little bit. We're going to talk about that in a second. But, that song, which was new on this EP, was kind of more of it's kind of like a party song. It kind of reminds me of like the first album by the Somerset, like, you know, one of those Somerset songs like The Boys You Do or Chelsea, kind of like a fun party, like American Pie sounding like neon song. Also on this EP was a song called Gateway, which was actually a song on the Alive Once Again EP. It was not re-recorded, it was just the Alive Once Again version. And then there were two other new songs on this EP, one called Rescue and one called To Hell with the Letdown, which did not appear on their full length. But those songs kind of, in revisiting this EP, those songs kind of sound like a good bridge between the self-titled EP and the full length.
We're gonna play one more song, and this song is called Damn Rough Night. It's the title track to the EP. If you haven't gotten it, where are they at so they can get them? Right there.
By the dancing lady.
Why that was so funny to me, I have no idea. But yes, by the dancing lady.
It wasn't bad.
It's gonna be a damn rough night for the designated driver, cause it's me and whoever you know we won't remember. Sorry for what I'm about to do. Turning 21 is a bitch to go through.
So solid EP here on a Damn Rough Night, even though I don't really consider this like a real quote-unquote EP. It's kind of more of like a teaser to the album, but whatever. The album that they put out on March 2nd of 2010, so only a few months after Damn Rough Night EP, was called Favorite Fix, and it came out on Fearless Records. once again had some production credits from Mike Green, who did their EP, as well as Neon Powerhouse producers Zach Odom and Kenneth Mount, who did Cartel, Chroma album. They did A Lesson in Romantics by Mayday Parade. They did Shh, Just Go With It, Every Avenue. They would go on to do like We Are the In Crowd and a whole bunch of other Mayday Parade albums. They, big in the neon world, so they also tackled the artist versus poet full length favorite fix. So this album, I like it. I like it a lot, but I don't love it as much as I love the 2008 EP that came before it, and I'll tell you why. I do think this album is really cool. So here's the thing: this album is really cool, right? There's a lot of good songs on it. The opening track, Car Crash, I really like. The title track, Favorite Fix, is one of my favorites. That's a really intense, like kind of dark, like synthy rock banger. My favorite song on the album might be track 4, Unconscious Reality. Kind of a, it's like a pop rock energetic track, but the lyrics kind of deal with like pill addiction and kind of, there's a lot of like darker lyrical themes on this album.
I'll take another pill to fall asleep, slip into unconscious reality. I'll slowly fade away the chemistry.
And there's a lot of just really cool songs going into the rest of the record, but the thing that kind of makes this album not my personal favorite by the band, even though there are really great songs throughout it, is that it kind of is held back, in my opinion, by the fact that there's like, it kind of sounds like a band who doesn't really know exactly who they want to be. You know what I mean? Like the first EP, they sounded very sure of themselves. And this Favorite Fix record, they're obviously still really good musicians and really good songwriters, but there's a lot of different styles of songs throughout the record, which isn't a bad thing, because again, there's a lot of great individual tracks, but like, it's not like a cohesive package. It's like on this the song Adorable, it's like almost like this super poppy, like could be a Never Shout Never song or something.
She's adorable as hell. She's got me begging on my knees. I'm so into it. She's adorable as hell. She's got me begging on my knees.
And then, like I said, Favorite Fix is like a dark track. Damn Rough Night is like a party song. Car Crash and some other tracks later on the record almost have like an indie feel to them. There's like Mayday Parade sounding songs. It's a little bit all over the place, and it's not an album that I really listened to like front to back very much. Although I'm not trying to shit on it or anything, like it is really good music, but I wanted to bring that up because after this album came out, led to kind of the demise of Artist versus Poet a bit, and I think that this album not really being the biggest grand slam in my eyes kind of led to that, because, as I said, Artist versus Poet were never like the headlining band or the big band. They were always kind of the openers for other big bands. And this album didn't really do much to like push them ahead outside of just being like an opening act for Mayday Parade or something, you know what I mean? And I think the fact that like they sounded a little confused on it in terms of like who they really are, because if you think about it too, by the time this album came out in 2010, the neon thing was kind of about to die in like another year or two. So, what I'm saying is there were so many bands doing that sound and so many bands that they were competing with that it just kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit and didn't really propel them to the next level. And I think that is partly due to the fact that the record didn't, really have like a big hit or a cohesive sound, like a confident sound behind it. You know what I'm saying? That's just like my honest take on it. I don't know. Again, I do like the album. I like a lot of the songs. But anyways, so just for the record, I am going to kind of TLDR, Cliff's Notes speed run through the rest of the Artist versus Poet story because, like I was saying, after the Favorite Fix full-length album, the band kind of disintegrated, and then some other stuff happened. Some other members kind of continued it, sort of. We're going to get to that in a second, but everything that I just covered is like, that's like my Artist versus Poet, you know what I mean? I wasn't really into what the band turned into after this. Like I said, we're going to get into it, but what I really wanted to highlight was more the 2008 EP and the full length and the stuff that came before, because that's the band that I really love. But here's basically what happened. So they did Warped Tour 2010. You know, Favorite Fix is out, they're touring on it. Warped Tour 2010, living the dream. After that tour, Craig Calloway, the dude who was in the pre-Forever the Sickest Kids band, he leaves Artist versus Poet. He leaves the band. After that, in the tail end of 2010, Artist versus Poet as a 4-piece lineup go out on a tour. Big neon tour at the time, the Fearless Friends tour, put on by Fearless Records, a label tour. Mayday Parade were the headliners. Breathe Carolina were on that shit. Every Avenue, Artist versus Poet obviously, and the band Go Radio. This was kind of the last hurrah for the OG AVP. So after this, there's some silence, and then from the band, and then in April of 2011, big news, the singer, lead singer, Tarcy Thomason, as well as the drummer, Joe Westbrook, the two guys who came from the band Enter the Collector together, they both announced that they would be leaving Artist versus Poet. Sad trombone. Apparently Tarcy had a wife and a kid who he understandably wanted to spend more time with, and Joe Westbrook decided to go back to school. So at this point, you know, there's only 3/5 of the OG Artist versus Poet are now gone, and you know, from my perspective, it's like, yeah, well, you know, the band didn't really pop off. You know what I mean? They didn't become some giant band, and although, like, to me, a young kid, you know, Artist versus Poet may have looked like, to me, this big, established, real band, fucking rock stars, you know, I'm fairly certain they probably weren't making a whole lot of money at all. You know what I'm saying? Grinding it on the road. They kind of hit that ceiling that you hit as like a lower level Warped Tour bands. Like they you know, put out the EP on the label, they started getting the hype, they put out the full length, they did Warped Tour, they did all these tours. From here on out, it's like, well, what's the future for this band? And you know, like I was saying, the full length didn't really like catapult things to the next level or anything. They were still like, you know, second band on a 5-band bill opening for Mayday Parade. Like, if I were in the band, I'd be like, yeah, it's probably time to go back to school. I mean, this has been fun, but, you know, I don't know if I see bigger pastures than second on a 5-band bill opening for Mayday Parade. Which, I mean, like, you know, is sad and a bummer, but I mean, you know, hey, that's just how it is in music and in the arts and entertainment sometimes, you know what I mean? So, and obviously I don't want to like speak for any of those guys, I don't know, that's just like my assumption. But anyways, after this was not the end of Artist versus Poet. And like I said, this, from here, Artist versus Poet kind of ends here. But the remaining two guys, Joe Kirkland, who was the rhythm guitar player and the backup vocalist, as well as the bass player Jason Dean, continued on. They decided to continue on. They got a new guy, Dylan Stevens, and they continued on as an acoustic band with Joe Kirkland singing. So I was never really into the acoustic band version, like the Artist versus Poet 2.0. And it's not, I don't think it was bad or anything. Like, so for the record, Joe Kirkland, that guy, the rhythm guitar player, he did backup vocals. He has a really good voice. Really great singing voice, actually. You know, it seems like a very talented guy. And, you know, Artist versus Poet, the 2.0, returned in 2012 with an album called Remember This, which is kind of like, you know, acousticy, like singer-songwriter-y, kind of like, I don't know, like almost like John Mayer-esque music or something. And it's really not bad, but it just doesn't really capture my attention, and it doesn't really feel like a real extension of Artist versus Poet to me. You know what I mean? It kind of feels like a different thing under the Artist versus Poet name.
Your eyes reflecting mine. You know, it's every time, can't you see? We just find you and me, and we just then. And I'm going away, the hair is past your face.
It's fine. I don't fault those guys for continuing on with it. I mean, if you were, you know, the remaining guys and everyone else left, and you know, it's not like Artist versus Poet, again, we're some giant band. You know, it's not like Panic at the Disco, right, where a bunch of old fans are going to get mad because, like, some guys are carrying it on. It was kind of like, you know, hey, it seems like the guys who left gave the other dudes their blessing to continue on, and, you know, I as an old Artist versus Poet fan, I'm not mad at those other guys for continuing on. It's like, hey, I understand, you know, you guys want to keep the ship going, you guys still want to rock, you know, but to me, it just didn't really, I don't know, it just didn't really have that, like, that zhuzh, that pizzazz, you know, it just never really interested me. But they did release a lot of, the acoustic Artist versus Poet 2.0 was around for like a few years until 2014 or so, and they released quite a bit of music, actually. Like I said, the Remember This album in 2012, they had a 2013 release called Keep Your Secrets, 2014 a release called Sake of Love. There's even some other EPs thrown in there too. And in 2014, they had an album called Medicine, which I was listening to some of it, and it's kind of more of a full band effort. It's a little bit less of like the singer-songwriter-y kind of acoustic stuff and more of like a contemporary pop kind of sound. It sounds cool, but again, even nowadays, it doesn't really capture my attention. Anyways, so after some releases, and so fun fact about Joe Kirkland, which I actually had no idea of, he was actually a contestant on The Voice around 2013 or so. He was coached by Adam Levine of Maroon 5, which is pretty crazy. Y'all know I love Maroon 5. I've never watched The Voice. I feel like I should, because there's so many, like, you know, I love Adam Levine. Cassidy Pope from Hey Monday was on that shit. Apparently Joe Kirkland from Artist vs. Poet was on that shit. He did get eliminated, though, unfortunately. And then Artist vs. Poet ceased to be in 2014. But another fun fact about Joe Kirkland, and we're getting to the end here, that I found out is that he is, I was like, what's Joe Kirkland up to these days? You know, his version of Artist vs. Poet didn't really pan out. What's that dude doing? He's like you know, one of those like, fucking award-winning, big-time, hotshot LA, like, songwriter guys now. And I wanted to, something I wanted to put at the end of this video. One cool thing that I found is that, so Joe Kirkland, LA songwriter guy, he has song credits and won an award for co-writing a Maroon 5 song that was released in 2021 called Beautiful Mistakes. And also, you know who also has a writing credit on this song is Andrew Goldstein. Andrew Goldstein used to play in a band who were on Fueled by Ramen called the Friday Night Boys, who were similar in sound and similar in popularity level to Artist vs. Poet. And both of those bands, Artist vs. Poet and the Friday Night Boys, actually went on tour together in 2009 on a tour called the Guys, Guys, Guys Tour, opening up for Sing It Loud, which the Somerset and who else is on that tour? The Morning Light were also on. So this like C-tier, you know, neon tour, two of those guys ended up writing like a gigantic 2021 Maroon 5 single. And another fun fact is I actually attended that tour, the Guys tour in like spring of 2009. I went to the Boston date. It was awesome. So I saw two guys who ended up, you know, becoming big hit songwriters. Pretty crazy. So yeah, I don't know, pretty cool. So that's pretty much the artist versus poet story. You know, just a band that, you know, I wanted to highlight, not a crazy big band or any sort of crazy story or whatever, but just a band that I feel like, you know, in this age we're in of emo renaissance, and looking back at these times, you know, Artist versus Poet are a band that I feel like don't get enough shine, and don't get, you know, I don't see their name come up as much as, you know, as much as other bands, and I felt like, you know, I wanted to put a little, hopefully put a little shine on them. So, and also, once again, rest in peace to Tarcy Thomason, man. That's, you know, fucking heartbreaking. I wish, you know, I don't even know what to say. It's just, you know, really sad, man. Really fucking sad. It makes me, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Again, condolences to his friends and family. Love you, Tarcy. You know what I mean? Love you, bro. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Happy New Year's. First cozy video of the new year. Big thank you to anybody who supports this channel on Patreon. If you want some bonus content, or if you want to just support the channel a little bit, little goes a long way. Patreon.com/thecozyrepresentative, or there's a link in the bio. And yeah, check out, go listen to Artist versus Poet. Do it for me. Love you guys. Have a good one. Peace out.